Ubisoft just announced Assassin's Creed Mirage alongside a bunch of other projects, including, finally, Assassin's Creed Japan. And, as you'd expect, I got hyped and went back to play some of the games, namely Black Flag, which I swear gets better every time. And replaying some missions, I couldn't help but notice how much we can learn from Assassin's Creed and apply it to D&D. So, welcome to Arcadia, this is the DM's Den, and today I'll share how Assassin's Creed can improve your encounter and dungeon design for Dungeons & Dragons. Assassin's Creed has changed a lot over the years, but there is one thing that remains similar across editions, at least until Syndicate, which is the last game that I played, and that is the assassination mission. The nature of these missions is like a lot of quests in Dungeons & Dragons. You are given a target you must assassinate because... insert here the reason why it furthers the story. In D&D, it's not so much about assassination, but it is often stuff like, you must slay that monster, you must defeat that lich, you must kill that bad guy. The interesting thing about Assassin's Creed, though, is the way it constructs the encounter. In Dungeons & Dragons, your target is often at the end of a dungeon, and you have to pass through multiple rooms with keyed enemies who are kinda just waiting for you there. Sometimes the dungeon even gives you the illusion of an open world, like if you have to kill a monster within a big open forest, when in fact that forest is just a series of pre-scripted encounters you must deal with in a specific order before getting to the end boss, kinda like if you had to clear a dungeon room by room. I saw many examples of this when playing Rise of Tiamat. The first big dungeon you find is the Iceberg of Oyavigaton, the second dungeon is the Tomb of Daedirius, the third, Nerenvain's Stronghold. I don't believe any of these is inherently terrible, but they could be improved greatly. For example, most of these dungeons are linear in design. It may look like they have a lot of rooms and a lot of things to explore, but most of that is just noise, inconsequential paths or dead ends. And that becomes clear when you trace lines over the maps for all the possible paths towards the boss fight or the quest objective, ignoring all the dead ends or, let's call it, the optional content. The players only have two possible trajectories at most, which is frankly limiting. Now let's contrast this with Assassin's Creed. When you are given a target to assassinate, all you know most of the times is its location. You need to explore that location, find your target, and then finish the job. How you do it is up to you. There are no predetermined paths like you see in dungeons. This means that the players can survey the area and come up with their own plans for the assassination. Some missions have elements which encourage certain routes more than others, and in Unity, I remember some indoor assassinations which were also very linear in design. But in Black Flag, where many of your targets are outdoors, you can see this in motion better than anywhere else. And it's something that improves the experience. Even the approach to the assassination location reinforces this amplitude of choice. All of the dungeons that I mentioned before have limited points of access. Oyavigaton and the Tomb have secret entrances, but if the players fail to find them or simply never go near them, it means in practice there is only one entry point. In Assassin's Creed, though, the location of your target is called a restricted area, meaning any guards who spot you there will become hostile immediately. But other than that, there are no physical barriers forcing you to enter that location from one place or the other, at least most of the times. You are free to choose to enter from the front gates and fight your way inward, or climb to the roofs and attempt the stealthy approach. You can bolt towards the target and assassinate them without killing anyone else, or you can pick up their guards one by one, making your life easier if you get spotted in the end and a fight does break out. And not only is this choice yours to make, you also have the knowledge to make it due to Eagle Vision, which lets you identify your target, their guards, possible hiding places, and color code them all so they're easier to distinguish. If you get to a higher point and use Eagle Vision, it becomes easy to draw a tactical map of the territory to help you during the planning phase. In the chaos of an open scenario with endless possibilities, this game basically does everything it can to provide you with all the information you require for meaningful decision making when devising your plan. This is also one of the things that I feel plagues modern dungeons, and a subject I already mentioned in my video about meaningful choices. When I said before that dead ends were inconsequential, I didn't mean that they don't impact the game at all. At the very least, they function as a resource depletion mechanism. However, in D&D, players often lack the eagle vision or some other mechanism that helps them distinguish two different paths that may or may not conduct to their target. If you have an intersection and the two paths are identical and you have to choose one of them, that is not a true choice. It's a random gamble. We should strive to populate our games and dungeons with choices that are meaningful. You don't need to telegraph which way the boss is, but allow your player's decision to be based on something. This is what Assassin's Creed does by highlighting the enemies and hiding places with eagle vision so you can decide how you want to approach the target. It can be something as simple as the path on the left has less enemies and the path on the right has places you can hide in. Now the players can choose between a sure fight or the possibility of sneaking away, but with the risk of a harder battle. If this characteristic also gives them a clue regarding which way is the right way, even better, but making the choice meaningful is already half the way to empower your players. They will enjoy making choices when they can make informed decisions. Making empty, uninformed choices will only make them feel lost. I will need to talk more about the illusion of choice, but I will leave that for another video. I will link it up there when it comes out. In the end, I think there are three main tips we can take away from Assassin's Creed when it comes to encounter or even dungeon design. First, there shouldn't be right ways to fulfill the mission's objective. The players should have the freedom to come up with as many of their own solutions as they can think of. Don't try to solve the situation yourself. You should simply provide your players the problem, the sandbox, and let them come up with the solutions. Second, we must assure there are multiple ways to get to the target and to engage with it. In other words, try to steer away from linear design to empower your players through their choices. Third, the players must be able to make informed decisions regarding their approach to the target, which requires we give them enough information to make the choices meaningful. In Assassin's Creed, this is all made possible due to the way the encounter is constructed. There isn't a boss in the last room of a large sequence of chambers. The target is somewhere inside a restricted area, and there are guards surrounding in every direction. There is no pre-programmed solution, just a sandbox for the players to be creative. And the way we can replicate this design in D&D is at the prepping phase. In fact, most of it coincides with the practices commonly known as smart prep, which not only makes your encounters more interesting, but also reduces the amount of work you have. Let's try to contextualize with an example. In Assassin's Creed Black Flag, there are missions where you must rob warehouses in the middle of huge properties. To open the warehouse, you must steal the key, which is carried by one specific guard, who is always on the move but usually stays in the innermost region of the area. There are 4 types of enemies around: regular guards, brutes who are tankier and immune to counterkills, agiles which are quick and can parry you, and snipers who survey the area from the top of watchtowers and can see and shoot you at great distances. There are also 2 or 3 alarm bells. If a regular guard spots you, especially if you engage in open conflict, they will try to run towards the bell and ring it, which will call reinforcements. But if you can approach an alarm bell undetected, it is also possible to sabotage it so it won't ring even if you're discovered. This is a very solid mission structure, very open for your players to play around and devise their own crazy plans. Notice how the mission doesn't specify how you should take the key from the keykeeper. You can pickpocket him from behind, you can assassinate him stealthily and take the key unnoticed, you can blaze through the entire property in open combat, kill him in a sword fight and pick up the key afterwards. Up to you. And notice as well how easy it would be to prep this encounter/dungeon. All you'd need would be a map and stat blocks for each type of guard, which you could even organize in squads to make it easier for you to move them around. Compare this to what you see in published adventures, where the dungeon is often nothing but a series of encounters you can predict and/or avoid, and I think it becomes clear which one is the best design approach. For example, the Xanathar's Hideout is the first proper dungeon in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. If we trace the direct path from the entrance of the sewers to the objective, here's how it looks like. After getting off the sewer central hub, the characters must go through a room with 1 goblin, a room with nothing, a room with a dwargar, and finally a room with a half-orc, the boss, an intellect devourer, and a mind flayer who is scripted to run away. If by any chance the players notice the secret door in the central hub, they discover a second path composed of a room with nothing, at least aside from a portal which the mind flayer uses to escape, and then the boss room. How could we use Assassin's Creed to juice up this dungeon? It wouldn't be easy without remodeling the whole map, but I think we could start by adding more connections between chambers and more entry points to give the players more options on how to approach the target. The most important chamber to do this to would be Q7, where the boss fight happens. I would not be satisfied with less than 3 or 4 different ways to enter the chamber, and at least one of those needed to facilitate a stealthy approach. I know in the map it shows 5 different accesses, but the ones on the right don't connect the entrance area to the goal area, so they don't really count. We would also need some way to convey to the players whether they are getting close to the target or not, since unlike Assassin's Creed they cannot see it. If we don't do this, they would be just running randomly inside the sewers. I know this can be difficult to convey in a rooms and corridor dungeon, but we have a pretty good visual cue in the map, altitude. If there would be ways for the characters to know that the boss was at the lowest level of the hideout, whenever they'd see a descending staircase, they'd feel progress. How do you plant this information? Use the guards. Allow the players to extract that information from the goblin in the first room. You could even make this information gathering the first challenge of the dungeon, finding out where the boss is. Of course, this only works if the dungeon is not linear, otherwise they can just walk forward. Speaking of guards, you can also make your dungeon more dynamic and easier to prep if you organize the guards in movable squads. There is nothing wrong with fixed enemies in fixed rooms, remember the snipers in Assassin's Creed, but if your players pass by a room with a half a dozen goblins, and when they come back to that room the goblins aren't there anymore, that will breathe life into your encounter. Where are the goblins? Did they see us? What do we do now? Consider as well if the enemies are aware that the hideout has been breached or not. Are they standing idle, or are they actively seeking the characters? Maybe you could even use an alarm system like the bells we just mentioned in Assassin's Creed. These are just a few things we can pick up from Assassin's Creed as inspiration from our games, but for sure there are many more. What do you think we could also draw from these games to improve our D&D sessions? Share your advice with everyone in the comments down below. I'd like to take a quick minute to thank everyone who has been supporting the channel so far. We got to 300 subscribers a few days ago, which I know is not a milestone that big for most YouTubers, but for me it means a lot. It means there are 300 people who I've either helped or entertained enough that they want more. And I promise to keep doing that. I wonder if we can reach 500 subscribers before December rolls in. Should we set this as a goal? I'm gonna set this as a goal. If you'd like to help out, the best thing you can do, aside obviously from liking the video and subscribing, is to share your favorite videos with your friends to help them reach a wider audience. And just viewing them. I'm already working on the next one, which will kinda tie in with this one since it's going to be about heists and being stealthy and stuff. If you're from the future, it should be appearing on my left right now. Thank you for watching, I'm the first Arcadian, and it is a good life we live, brother.
At best, may it never change.
And may it never change us.